All right, we're live
All right,
with
we're live.
ourselves.
Good, good morning, everybody. It is the Sick of This Show, and I'm Nick. And today we're bringing on a special guest, my friend and fellow poet, the poet Miranda. She is someone who I've gotten to know a little bit over the last couple weeks and have gotten to know a little through her poetry, whether she knows it or not, and appreciate everything that she does and I find her work incredibly, um, just, just incredibly incredible. I know it's not a good word choice, maybe, but it's passionate, it's full of love, it's full of care. Um, and it's fun to see, and it's wonderful to see that other people are writing poetry, and have been for a lot longer than me. Um, and so I wanted to bring Miranda on to share her experience, to introduce her to my community, um, and to just read some poetry this morning and have a little bit of a something different to remember that art can bring some joy and music and poetry can help change the world. So, good morning, everybody, and good morning, Miranda.
Good morning, Nick. Thanks for having me.
Yeah. Would you like to introduce yourself too, as well, for everyone?
Sure. So my name's Miranda. I am a poet. I've been a poet since, I don't know, fifth grade. Um, I'm a trans woman. I'm 41 now. I came out at 39. My poetry has actually been a big part of helping me discover myself and express what it's like to live that life. Because a lot of people don't really get it, don't understand trans issues or trans people, and um, so having that my poetry for an artistic outlet is a great way to kind of, I don't know, show myself a
It's
little bit.
no, I get it. Sometimes it's hard to say words about our own poetry. Sometimes I think. Um, I get tripped up when I try and talk about myself in my poetry, because I feel awkward when I do it. I don't know if that's something similar for you. It just feels awkward at times to talk about myself, which is why I like to talk about other things.
Yeah.
Is that something you get too? Because I mean, I hope I'm not alone.
Yeah, it's difficult to talk about myself directly, but something that I do is I kind of work in image sets.
Okay.
So you've been on my Substack, so you've seen that I have two manuscripts that I'm kind of building as I
Yeah.
go. Um, one of them is the Escape Act. The other is Car Girl. Um, so what I do is I have these, and like the image sets will change over time and whatever, but right now those are the two that I'm kind of really into deep. Um, so with the Escape Act poems, I've read about Harry Houdini and books that he's written and um, watched YouTube videos about picking locks. um, like watched these old like 1920s silent movies that were very over the top and vaudeville-esque and everything. And so I'll start with the imagery,
Yeah.
and then that helps me kind of approach whatever it is about me that I need to get to in that poem.
I love that. I think that's something that I don't think about doing, but try and do. So I come at it too from a very therapeutic standpoint. Is so I go through I've been going through a emotional distress tolerance group therapy for almost a year and a half now or longer. Um,
Mm.
because I was bullied the shit out of at work by some dude who just wanted a power trip. And I thought I had to take on every responsibility on my own at home, even though I'm in terms of like the financial and monetary side, I felt I had to take on the traditional masculine role alone in my family.
Yeah.
Even though that was never something that my wife and I agreed we had to do. Um, it was just
Oh, but
something
that
we
stuff's so ingrained.
but in a way we also we took it upon ourselves to choose to go a more traditional route because it was so expensive for childcare when my wife wanted to start working again. We were both in the army. I don't talk about her very much because I don't want to put my wife's information out there and I respect her privacy on it. But we're both veterans and we met in the army. And when she got out and I was out, I got a medical discharge. She actually served way longer than I did. So I give her thanks more so than people that I tell her thanks all the time. I'm like, hey, thanks for serving more than I did. I didn't have to. Um, you beat me. And she took on a more traditional role in the house. Like we've got kids. But it was easier because she wanted to. And it wasn't something that we felt we had to do. But then at some point, it felt like something that I had to do. Like it felt like I had to keep this charade almost of like what we needed to do going. And so we did for years and years and years and years and years. And finally it landed at me working over 100 hours a month sometimes for a couple months, like, or 100 hours a week. Like I would be going hours and hours and hours. Just, I'd sit at my desk from dawn until almost dawn. I'd get a couple hours sleep. I'd come back and it wore me out. It burnt me out. And all the therapy I finally took into practice. And I was like, you know what? I'm going to use this and I'm going to go with it. Um, and so I started writing. I lost my job and I was like, I'm either going to get super depressed or I got to find a way um, to get through it. And I decided, you know what? I'm going to just use the therapy and the mindfulness training that I had, and I'm going to let it out there. And so I wrote a poem about robber barons um, because I was super pissed off about not being my job, losing my job, but because of the right to work mentality
Yeah.
that's out here and how pervasively evil it is and how much of an old like plantation mentality is for especially in the South is like you work for us and you work at our leisure. And good morning everyone in the chat also who's coming in. It's good to see everybody. um and um and so I got pissed, so I wrote a series about robber barons.
Yeah.
And but now I'm finally getting comfortable into it. I've been doing it for over a month now. I've been doing a poem a day, which is a lot. It's hard. It's hard to do a poem a day at times. Miranda, I know you could probably talk about how ridiculous it is that I do a poem a day. And
I've never been able to like hold on to that kind of streak for very long.
yeah, I think I'm at day 39 now, almost day 40. I want to make it to 100 days at least of daily poems. I think by then I can build up maybe a couple poems in a few days, like one or two a day if I need to on some days, take days off. But eventually I'd like to write a book now. Like I've realized I just want to write a book of poetry.
Yeah.
And so I also really want to give the opportunity. Um, oh, Rick, that's a great question. The goal for me, um, One is I'm trying to build up a subscription base on Substack. And unfortunately, you have to cater to the algorithm at times to do that. And that requires putting out content in daily doses. And I don't want to put out rage bait content. Um, I I started going in that round a little bit, but that's not who I am. I'm fairly level-headed overall. Like underneath this mask of just gentle Nick is a lot of emotion that I struggle with. But I try and deliver it in a way that's very mindful of what's around me. Because I can go 0 to 100 really, really fast. But I do the poetry a day because it's like Sunny said, it's a little bit of catharsis, but it also is catering to the algorithm. And for now, I'm using it as catharsis to heal, but also to start getting my thoughts out in a more concise way than writing long form articles. Like I have things I want to say, but I don't want to say them in long form articles. It's too much effort.
Yeah.
What do you think about that, Miranda? I know you don't write a poem a day, but do you have
No,
like a goal on what writing is for you or like how you achieve your poetry?
yeah. So I tend to write several poems kind of simultaneously. So I'll have a day where um, I really dedicate some time to writing, and I'll start or I'll progress with 5 or 6 poems, kind of bounce around between them. Um, as I get stuck in one place, if I can't work through that at the moment, then I'll go to a different poem. And so I'll end up finishing my poems kind of in clusters too. So,
Yeah.
which isn't the best for the algorithm, but it's okay. I try to post like one poem a week. Um, and I also write memoir. So, I'm trying to like post a memoir piece each week. Um, and for that project, I kind of have a framework that I'm working with. Um, Whenever I started my transition, I created a Spotify playlist of songs that had always um, like touched my dysphoria or euphoria in some way.
Yeah. I
And
love that. I love that you called it dysphoria and euphoria, not just one. I think that's really beautiful. Sorry, Miranda, for cutting in.
yeah, no, that's um, yeah, and like a lot of people know from kind of public discussions about trans people that like dysphoria is a thing,
Yeah.
but people don't know about the other side, euphoria, the joy of being yourself. And um, yeah, so I created this playlist, and I was like, well, I kind of want to write some stuff that's more memoir-esque, tell some stories about my life. Um, some of my poems have actual like memories or stories from my life, but um, I wanted to be able to, I guess, expand on some of those things. So I was like, well, I'll
Sorry for being awkward there.
so
I got a
I'll
phone
take
call and
I'll take a couple songs at a time. Um, call one song side A, one song side B, um, and then kind of see what the song reminds me of at the time that I'm writing. Because I mean, some of the songs like I listened to for 20 years, and um, there's a lot of memories they could bring up, but just kind of seeing where it goes is a fun experiment.
no, I love that. And I think it's very different. Um, I couldn't imagine really doing two poems at once, to be honest, right now. Like it's hard. So I studied music. when I was younger. The first degree I have is in music theory and composition. I went to Carnegie Mellon University and I loved it. I loved writing. I love the idea of music behind, like structuring and building and the foundations of it and putting something together. And then when I was in college, and I still have it, I have it with me. It's in a very safe place. But when I was in college, my mom printed out or put together a collection of all my grandfather's poetry. And
Awesome.
I wrote a couple of my pieces of music from it. I used his poems as the inspirations because a lot of them was poetry he wrote to my grandmother. Um, and I love it. I'll, at some point here soon, I'll feature some of his stuff because it's my family's work and I can showcase it finally. And but really until now, I almost forgot that I had it. Um, but because, well, I have fibromyalgia, so I forget everything, to be totally honest at times. And that's where I want to bring in my poem for the day is the fibromyalgia. Um, but from a reference and a muse standpoint, looking back, it really is. I have influences from my grandfather. Um, and he's someone who I've taken influence from my entire life. I look a lot like him. You get pictures of us near each other, and we're fairly similar. And I lost him when I was young, but he stayed with me through the poetry and
Yeah.
what he's been able to bring. So if we don't, I mean, obviously, if you don't mind, if everybody in the audience doesn't mind, I'd like to read some poetry today on our Poet Talk. And then if Miranda, if you'd like to share one of yours, I'd love to hear and have everybody hear what some of your poems as well.
Yeah.
So let me pull up today's poem, as unprepared as I am. Um, okay, so I'm going to try and go through this whole poem as best I can without stopping. So this one is about my fibro. And I have a good friend who's in the audience who also suffers from fibro. And she and I got talking about um, what it feels like on the inside. And it inspired me to put it down into words of what it sort of feels like on the inside to deal with this. So this is drifting through darkness. Drifting through clouds, I wander. Wandering free, I float. Suddenly, lightning strikes. It ripples through, coursing, pulsing, pulling, 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 pulling at nothing, 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 not nothing. I, I, I'm drifting, drifting through clouds, I float, floating on nothing. Thunderclaps, striking me back, flashes of light, light, lightning, lighting me up, 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 upwards it curls, curling, coursing, pulsing, pulling, pulling, pulsing, pounding, nothing, nothing, no, not nothing, pulling, not pulling, sucking, drinking, taking, eating, consuming my mind. Darkness. Ah, blissful darkness. Drifting through darkness. Floating. I'm floating. Freely I wander. Wandering. I'm wandering. Through clouds I drift. Drifting. I'm drifting. Blissful through darkness. Drifting through clouds. Lightning strikes. Striking. Rippling through. Floating on nothing. Thunderclaps, slapping, pulling me back from the darkness, back from the dark. Flashes of light, curling upwards. curling. It pulls me, pulling me down, pulling me, pulling. And that was Drifting Through Darkness. Um, as I was reading it, it kind of was pulling. So you may have noticed me falling back a little bit. Um, that's sort of, I have to explain where this poem comes from for me is I have fibromyalgia, and I also have, um, sort of on the path towards MS. I feel sock-like on my feet. So if you have MS or you know people who have it, you probably understand that feeling. But on my left foot, my my middle toe curls, or sorry, my second toe curls under all the time because it feels like there's a pressure in the palm of my foot that strikes and then goes from my foot up all my leg into my waist. And when it does that, it goes from, like I said, from drifting because my mind floats and wanders to just crashing and pulling me down. And so that was the information, um, or that was the inspiration, sorry, from today's poem. Um, so I'm glad I got through that.
Yeah. So you can really hear your music training with that, the way it sort of has like a staccato thing, especially with the repeats of, lightning, tooling, like that. It really drives the poem forward musically, and I like that about it.
Thanks. I try and use, there's a structure that I try and use. I think it's called anaplosis. Let me look it up. Ana Anadiplosis. Sorry. It's a rhetorical device. I finally figured out the word for it. Fred Pogue actually asked me um, when Lawrence Winterman and I and the three of us were on together. He asked, "What is that? What is the poetic device you use? That's where it's you take a word at the end of one's one sentence or one line and you start the next with it or a form of it. And it's called anadiplosis, which is a super neat word. Um, and I didn't realize that's what I was doing, but um, it just like, I love the music behind it or the
Yeah,
force of music. So thank you.
yeah.
So, Sonny, your question is, are you talking about fibromyalgia? Isn't that where you feel pain all over your body? Yeah, so fibromyalgia is one of the symptoms is pain throughout your body. It's for me, there's always a trigger, from what I've heard. There's always a trigger that happens for it. So either a psychological event or a physical event that happens that's traumatic that brings it on, and then it's sudden, uncontrollable pain sort of in your body that and see my I describe it, and there's a good um, pain chart that talks about it. Is 0 for somebody with fibro is a 6 for everybody else, and and a 10 is a 13 for normal people. So it's hard to explain what what it feels like because we're constantly in pain. So it's where your nerve basically, as it was explained to me, and I figured out, is your nerve endings don't have a trigger that says there is, or they don't have a percentage valve where they say we're going to do a slight turn of pain. It's either 100% on or 100% off, and there's never really a off. Um, and so you're just sort of in pain all the time. Um, there's neurological components that go with it, things like headaches. And so I live with almost like a headband on my head at all times, which is where the pounding and the pulsing and the pulling come from back down is it's a head to toe thing. And it's not something that goes away. Um, It's just something you sort of have to deal with and live with, which really sucks. So, Sonny, if you have it, I'm really sorry because it fucking sucks. But we get through it by pushing through each day. Um, I mean, it's changed my life greatly. I used to ride a motorcycle. I played soccer. Um, I have a hard time doing either of those. I don't ride a motorcycle anymore, and I very rarely play soccer. But it's all about managing symptoms. Um, so that was a um, great way to describe it. But I want to pass it over to you, Miranda, because I want to give you a chance to showcase some of your poetry too,
Okay.
and get to talk about your work because you're our special guest. I get to read my poetry all the time.
Yeah. So I pulled a few up here and I hadn't really decided which one I wanted to start with. Um, so I'm, I'm going to start with one from my Car Girl manuscript. Um, is um, One of the questions that I get a lot as a trans person is like, when did you know? Were there signs whenever you were a kid? Um, I didn't come out until I was almost 40, so there's a lot of skepticism about like, oh, this is just something that you thought up over time or whatever. But it's it's not. It took me 40 years to kind of come to terms with who I am and like take steps to be myself, but um the breadcrumbs were always there. So I wrote a poem that kind of talks about some of those breadcrumbs, and this is called "Selfies in a Rearview Mirror." She sits in the parking garage, already running late, and frames her face in the rearview mirror. She takes her selfie. Her eyeshadow turned out good on the third try. She looks in to see behind her, to who she's always been, to when she clutched Raggedy Ann, to when she told her mom, I don't want to be the little brother anymore, to when excuse me, to when she tumbled across the front lawn after her sister taught her cartwheels. She wanted to turn over and over until she stuck the landing herself. To when her sister's friends experimented with her hair and makeup, to them she was a mannequin. To when she dressed up as a girl for Halloween, for fun, she came alive in her uncostume. To when she lifted her hands at church camp and pleaded, she spent years, decades, pleading for this thorn to be removed. To when she wore tails in the spring because she couldn't wear a white dress. To when her children called her dad. She tried to be a good father, despite the distance within. To when she found something like a woman's courage reflecting back to her. She adjusts the rearview mirror and pulls forward onto the gray city street.
I I love that. I love that, Miranda. That was beautiful.
Thank you.
Thank you. That was beautiful. I put one of the lines in there that so I close my eyes through most of it because I like when I listen to poetry, I like closing my eyes because then I can visualize it and see
Yeah,
almost a little movie of it. Um, and when you said she came alive in her uncostume, that was so beautiful. I love that you hid that in the Halloween and you it was sort of a trick on everybody else is that you were out as yourself and not as somebody else.
yeah,
And I think that's amazing. So, wow, thank you. You're getting so much love in the chat too.
yeah.
And
Thank you, everybody.
I think that's so. Can you tell me about how you came up with the idea of the rearview mirror for it to shape it?
Yeah. So I was I actually started with this poem, uh, gosh, like 2015 or so. So I guess it took me 10 years to write. Um, and I was, it actually started with me taking a selfie in the rearview mirror. At the time, I was in grad school, and part of my aesthetic shtick was that I was the guy who wore bow ties.
Okay.
And so I was like taking this selfie to show off my bow tie. And um, I wrote a little poem about that. And um, it never really felt like a complete poem. Um, but I kind of liked the selfies in a rearview mirror idea. So I was like, that's just something that was sort of there in my head for a long time. Um, and then for the last few months, since I started my Substack and have been trying to be more consistent about getting poetry out there, I went back through some of my old poems, and I was looking at that one, and I started thinking about um, a lot of these things that I had talked to my therapist about, and all these old memories, and um, sort of like kind of coming together in my mind, but not really. I wasn't even like rewriting the poem at that point. It was just kind of like something that was churning. And there was a day that I um, needed to go to the lab to get my blood work drawn for my hormone levels, and I really was running late. And but like I sat in the car and like adjusting the mirror because my wife had driven the day before, and I was like, oh, that's it. Like this is going to be kind of a listicle poem in a way. And um, so I went to get my blood drawn, and I came home, and that's when I started piecing it together.
I love that. I think I love that it just was natural progression of you taking something that you already had and already were working on and you didn't blow it away. You didn't tear it down. You made it more you. Um, and I think that's cool. I love the also your little anecdote about you being the bow tie person in college. Um, I think we all had a bow tie person in college, but each bow tie person was bow tied for a different reason. Like I've come to realize that I mean I liked bow ties too. I have a couple. I can't wear them because my beard's too long, so they just cover up the bow tie anyway.
Yeah,
So it's kind of useless. Um, but but I get it. Like I like the bow tie thing. It's so fun. And Emma in the chat said new title, bow ties bow ties and
Bow ties
dresses,
and
and
dresses. Yeah.
I think that'd be a great band name. Is bow ties and dresses.
Yeah.
And it would be it would be a fun punk rock band. Um, but I think it's interesting how you. I always find it interesting because I don't think I've ever really engaged with someone who's either gay or trans that I thought is weird because of it. Like, I don't think in living memory that that was ever something that I've thought about because I think it's like just natural that we all shift and change over time because I've shifted and changed over time. Um, and I've grown into who I am. So why can't other people? And I think it's really interesting that you found the bow tie. Can you, I'm gonna latch onto that. Why did you go with a bow
Mm.
tie over other possible stylistic choices to express yourself?
Oh, um,
I know
on
that's
all the
probably a
possible,
small part, but why the bow tie?
yeah. So all of the possible questions I thought you might ask me today. I didn't think about that one. Um, yeah. So I I went through kind of cycles of um more masculine presentation, more feminine presentation, and so like I would grow my hair out long and all these feelings about um that being like insufficient, I guess,
Hmm.
um would kind of cut me down because it was like, oh no, I can't be trans. That's not the answer here. Um but it was. But like so then I would like drastically remake myself into some like um archetype of masculinity.
Yeah.
Um and like I was never the big bulky guy. I was never really muscular. Um I played sports and I was, you know, fairly athletic, but you know, also have always been a big reader, big nerd. Um and so I became like the stereotype of like the bisexual barista dude.
Okay. I know that
And
stereotype. I've seen it.
yeah, so you know, I grew a mustache and I started wearing bow ties and my wife started making bow ties for me
Oh, I
um
love that.
because she has like all the sewing skill and stuff. So um yeah, that's kind of what started it. And then once you start with something that's like one of those signature items, you end up kind of leaning into it. And so, you know, she was making me bow ties. Sometimes, like we would go to the fabric store and pick out fabric, and then she would turn into a bow tie, and um, people would buy me bow ties as gifts. And so it just kind of kept going, and uh, probably the bow tie guy for like 4 or 5 years.
I love how things like that sometimes get out of hand too. Like other people get it out of hand on you. You're like, oh my God, I just wanted a bow tie. I didn't want 10,000 of them. And now you have
Yeah,
an army of bow ties hanging on your wall. Um, I love that. Sorry, I latched onto the bow tie because I also, um, I went through bow ties as well. Like I enjoyed bow ties, but I also see bow ties as, I guess, a mask for um, identifying sexuality in a lot of ways at times to me because I see it as a way to hide. Um,
yeah,
like you said, it's the bi barista or the gender fluid barista, or it's just the nerdy kid who wears the bow tie and is fun and is nice and is fun to hang around. So I went through my bow tie phase too in a very different way. And I have over the years suffered with and figured out the idea of masculinity. and what it means to be a man, just in general, but as a man who is bi and attracted to both women and men, but only as I guess as the straightest bi person you probably know. Um, because for me, it's all we almost use it as a like a while we're out at rock shows. My wife and I go to rock concerts a lot, and we like looking at people and viewing the humanity that's around and the ridiculousness that some people present. And it gives us a chance to relax and enjoy all people together in such like a unified way because we get to hit on people together separately. We get to play around and just enjoy the beauty of humanity without any of the like stigma behind it. Um,
Yeah,
and so I think my bow tie was finally realizing that my was that it's okay to have those feelings. And it's okay to be who you are without judging yourself negatively
yeah.
for it. Um, so thank you for sharing that. Um, I'm I'm glad I caught you with a slightly unexpected question because my next one is going to be an expected question is
Okay.
as a kid and as an adult, as someone who's grown into your poetry over the years too, because it sounds like you've grown quite a bit throughout your years as a poet, is who has been your what are your inspirations? Who is almost your muse or inspiration behind all of this?
Um,
Or
yeah, it's a,
simpler question, who is your favorite poets that led you to this?
oh, picking one favorite's impossible. But so as a kid, I started with the Shel Silverstein books.
Mhm.
So A Light in the Attic, Where the Sidewalk Ends. Um,
We have those. We've read
yeah,
them all to our kids.
yeah, and I have see he wrote The Giving Tree as well. I actually have a Giving Tree tattoo.
Oh, do you? That's amazing.
Mm,
My wife would
yeah.
love that. She loves The Giving Tree.
Yeah.
It's such a good book.
Um,
It's,
so
I love it.
that's where my love of poetry started. And even though a lot of his poems have like a silly kind of playful element to them, there's a lot of uh emotional depth as well. And so, whenever ever I was a kid and I felt so disconnected from everybody else and so misunderstood, um, that's those are poems that I could turn to and feel like, okay, being a little weird's fine. Or,
Yeah.
like I can dive into this moment and not worry about the bullies at school or any of the other bullshit. Um, so like he's kind of where it started. Um, More recently, I've been really fascinated with poets who write kind of like the project book, sort of like, project albums usually revolve around a particular theme or musical movement or something. So there are a lot of poets who write books like that. And that's kind of like my two manuscripts that I'm working on sort of follow that motif. Um, so two in particular that um, I read during grad school when I was working in my MFA were Nick Flynn and Cynthia Lowen. Um, Flynn has a book called Blind Huber. Excuse me. Um, Blind Huber was a guy in, I think, the 1800s who studied bees. Most of what we know scientifically about bees came from his research. So it was just him and his assistant and studying beehives, bee behavior, like the social structure of the colony, like that kind of stuff came from Huber's research. So Nick Flynn wrote this book that uses a lot of um, imagery of bee colonies and beehives to talk about human social connections. Um, has poems that are specifically about Huber, about his relationship with his assistant. Um, and so I just, first time I read that book as an assignment, but I just loved it and loved the ideas behind it. Um, loved the way that like he would be um, writing about, um, using the imagery of insects, but writing a love poem.
And that's
And
so cool. That's so
yeah,
neat. Such a different idea to get into the I linked in the sorry to interrupt. I linked in the chat the uh to Blind Huber because I think that's really an amazing like depth background on like
yeah,
animal interactions and a very different approach to poetry. Like I wouldn't think to go with ants or with bees or with a colony creature like that. I tend to use farming almost or like the metaphors around like nature because they make sense to me. But I guess someone
yeah,
who has that experience, that's such a cool approach to it. I'm gonna go read that now. Um,
yeah. And then the Cynthia Lowen book is, I think the title is The Cloud That Contained Lightning. So she is a granddaughter of Robert Oppenheimer, the creator of
okay.
the atomic bomb.
Wow.
And so that's quite a legacy to have.
Yeah.
Um, so she wrote a book about the development of the bomb. There are poems about the army selecting what their targets would be. Um, it's a really interesting way to deal with that difficult family history being related to a celebrity. Um, and yeah, it's
I am looking her up too, and um, that's that's such an unexpected legacy to have to live with. Uh, like I couldn't imagine living with that type of legacy behind you. Like, how do you accept that your family helped usher in an era of greatness, but also killed millions and millions of people? Um,
mhm,
and like just the devastation that nuclear weapons have caused since then, and the atomic, um, the rush to atomic energy and the nuclear arms race and the Cold War and all of the legacy behind that. I can't imagine seeing like
yeah.
having that as part of your family history. Um,
It's like
like,
Grandpa created the second half of the 20th century.
yeah, like I'm super cool with like the idea that like, yeah, my family's kind of not really well known because we haven't done too many overly important things in history, and that's okay. Um, because it's okay not to be the main characters sometimes.
Yeah,
Like I'm okay with not being the main character in the arc of history. I feel like the main characters in the arc of history tend to be either supervillains or groups of people who fight back. So I guess maybe it's time we can be main characters in this story. Um, so maybe I'm going to go read her stuff now because maybe she has a new inspiration for me that could lead forward in terms of, because I think one of the things we haven't talked a lot about today is how poetry and art in general can influence society and like
yeah,
how it can move. move mountains or change movements. Um, and so, what do you think of that idea? Do you think, because I've seen in the chat um, that some people are like, oh, maybe I should get back into poetry. And I encourage everybody to do it. If you are interested in doing it and learning, it's something everybody can learn to do. Um,
Hmm. You
and
don't have to have this pressure of being a good poet or any of that nonsense. Just write poems.
yeah, yeah. And just, just write what's in your heart. And I think that's the biggest lesson I've gotten out of this. And so like, I don't really have a literary muse. Um, like my, I grew up with obviously Shel Silverstein, but also I grew up with I think it was Robert Frost and all the. Um, uh, I'm from Vermont, so I grew up with
Oh yeah.
the stories about the forests and Snowflake Bentley and just nature poems and things that were based around snow pretty much and cold and roughing roughing it out
Yeah.
and so I think that's those were really my inspirations from a like a literary background, but in terms of I come at it from the music side too, is I love the musicality and the rhythmicality of poems. Um, and I can't write music in a day like that. I couldn't get music out in the way I could poetry. And for me, it is sort of journaling. It is
Yeah.
use this as journaling for people like take Substack, build a blog, just journal and write. And it's something I talked with somebody else with Shane Urich the other day on a very, very different conversation than today. But it does come into this is we're now in the world of AI. Um, and AI is something that's going to be pushed really heavily. Um, it's also something that's really bad for the arts because the first thing they did was say, oh, let's see how much we can plagiarize from the arts and see if we can make AI do the artistic things because then maybe it'll be a
Mhm.
little more human. But one of the things I've realized is maybe and from my discussion with Shane was maybe we're approaching it wrong. Maybe we need to, because we're in the time of AI and I worked in tech, is we need to embrace it. We need to take that challenge that it's presenting us is they're going to train AI to be hateful and to be bigoted and to profile and to do the things that we don't want in tech. But we also have a voice as a collective to get as much beauty out there as possible and as much joy and as much empathy and as much love and as much care. And I think blowing the system up with poetry and with music and just journaling and your feelings and getting them out there and being therapeutic for yourself, but for others too, is
Yeah.
has a chance to really change the algorithm um,
Mhm.
long term. What do you think on that? I know that's a really deep question, but what do you think of the idea of getting more art out there to help influence, say, AI in a positive direction?
Yeah, definitely. So, I mean, they've, taken all of these raw ingredients from poems and they're going to try to turn it into nationalistic bullshit, repeats of the Star Spangled Banner, whatever. Um, and use art as in a very
Weapon?
didactic way and as a weapon. Um, so um, in a broad sense, art is always prescriptive and descriptive. So it helps us um, learn how to think, learn how to be empathetic, learn how to be ourselves. Um, and it also describes the time that we're living in, the things that we're experiencing day to day. And um, So us creating art ourselves is, you know, showing that like humans have souls. And it feels like sometimes that um, one poem can never be enough. Um, but if everyone is writing the poetry, then like we're all becoming more ourselves, and the system doesn't want that.
Hmm. And I think maybe that last part is the most important is the system doesn't want what we're doing. The system doesn't want us to artistically express ourselves. The whole idea of on a political sense for everything that's going around in the world, because we have to talk about it, because politics is everything. We live in a time of turmoil where politics is defining moral righteousness or defining amoral righteousness and codifying it as law more precisely. But we need to remember that last point is they don't want us to do this. And the biggest and simplest act of rebellion that you can do as a person, especially in an age, because the Nazis did it, Mussolini did it, the Russians did it. Everybody who's done a sort of a authoritarian takeover takes over the arts and makes it bland and like Miranda, you said nationalistic. And I write a lot of political and patriotic poetry, but my stuff isn't nationalistic. It's populistic.
Right.
And there's a
Yeah.
difference, like, because it doesn't, I like the popular opinion and the idea of people and our nation, e pluribus unum, or out of many one
Move one. Yeah. You're
is,
doing like a Walt Whitman thing.
yeah, it's like we have to we have to rebrand civics and like patriotism back to those of us who actually show it and embody it. And to me, patriotism is caring about the community in the whole. So that's really where I get my poetry from. But it's also what they hate. It's they hate that we're
Yeah.
doing it because they can't stop the joy and the humanity that comes out of it. And it ruins in terms of an AI algorithm and in terms of an AI learning model, because AI, all it is a large language model, which is a giant database of information that they have collected and aggregated together. And they say, answer these questions prescriptively, and depending on the answer, here's your output eventually. The more
Hmm.
information we put into that model, the more it has to learn off of humanity and empathy and love and caring and the beauty that we bring. Why do they take out the arts? Because it deadens people. It uninspires. It's purposeful uninspiration. Um, like I used to love the national anthem and the idea of the national anthem and what it stands for because it's a beautiful song. It has a lot of energy and a lot of emotion, and it really does evoke patriotism. But they've corrupted that idea because they want arts to be what they define it to be and not the humanity behind it.
Yeah.
Um,
And like whenever they sing Land of the Free, it means something very different than you or I singing that same
yeah,
thing.
yeah, yeah, and that's really the important distinction is in it too is we can't lose our own national anthems and our own songs because they want to take them. They're ours. There are symbols, there are songs, there are poems, there are writings, um, and the more that we not wrap ourselves in the flag with performative patriotism, but wrap ourselves in civic patriotism, the less leg they have to stand on. And that civic
Hmm.
patriotism is writing right now. If you can write or you can speak or you can sing or you can do anything that is artistic in any way, or you've ever wanted to try doing any of it, go for it. That's my
Yeah.
message from today is go do it. Go put yourself out there. Go put your music, your art, your empathy and your humanity out there, because that's really what changes the world, is showing ourselves and giving people space to join in. Um, so I also, we're right at the top of the hour. Um, Miranda, I want to
Do I
let
have
you
time
close.
for one more poem?
Oh, we could stay as long as you want, Miranda. I'll let you read poetry all day. I don't know if Substack would appreciate us doing like a 12-hour just back and forth of poetry, but
Oh,
I bet we could.
that'd be a lot of fun. Yeah.
But yes,
Um,
I'd love to hear more of your poetry.
yeah. So this one is very political. Um, it's one that I wrote um, like a week or two after the inauguration, whenever he ordered that the NIH and the CDC start purging data about trans people.
Mhm.
Um, like the obvious callback was to the book burnings of 1933, whenever the first target of book burnings was Hirschfeld's clinic for trans people. Um, so and like there were there were people who were sharing the first they came for poem online, and I have mixed feelings about about that poem,
Mhm.
um, because it doesn't list some groups that were eliminated then. Like it doesn't talk about queer people, it doesn't talk about disabled people, because, you know, even after that poet had that revelation that like, oh, this has been a systemic erasure, um, he himself still didn't see some people and their humanity. So, with no further rambling or ado, um, this is called Don't Remember Me for My Resilience or Strength. Definitely not for bravery. These days, I tell my friends I love them more often, just in case. The time for my poems to obfuscate, to obscure plain meaning, is over. First they came, first they came. That poem is all over my social media feeds. It doesn't feed me. So few have anything to say about edicts erasing trans existence. They say I worry too much for an unperson. I keep thinking about the poems I haven't written. I've spent 6 months trying to write an elegy for an egg I knew. They say he killed himself because his girlfriend caught him in her panties. Craft note. Should I strike through he/him above? Last they came. This isn't the first time they've wanted to erase us. Last they came. We didn't even make it into the goddamn poem. I take my wife to the mountains every time she asks. I want her to remember how ridiculous I look in snowshoes. Back to that egg. Her favorite song was The Beautiful People. I said I wouldn't obscure plain meaning. Let me define egg. A trans person who hasn't been born into themselves yet. When I was a young girl, I checked out books about magic from the school library. I became quite the illusion. Don't let the book burners anywhere near your local library. Don't remember me for who you thought I was. Remember me for who I am. My wife and I thought we did the right thing. We bought a house, American dream, with an FHA loan, magnolia tree, and chipped red paint. I tried to draw a Venn diagram of politicians who demand the Ten Commandments be posted in schools, and politicians who bear false witness against the queers. It was a circle. I remember the soft glow of the gas heater in the hallway of my childhood home. Haven't you ever wanted to be as constant as a pilot light? I don't know how many more metaphors I get to write for you. Don't remember tears streaming down my face. Remember when I started smiling for photos. First they came, last they came. Don't remember that poem without me.
That that was beautiful. And also really, really important, I think, to remember right now is that poem of First They Came does forget people. It was also written by a Nazi. And I think people forget that is that
Yeah,
the, he was a Nazi up until they came for him because he no longer fit their group. But he forgot other groups because he hated so much too. He
yeah,
wanted certain groups erased. It's also one of the reasons I wear this shirt and I do it so publicly in Arkansas is the shirt I wear is I'll see if I can back up all the way. So it's on the screen is when someone attacks one party member, we all roll for initiative um, because we have to. We can't leave people behind because that's why we're here. Like we left people behind, either gay, straight, trans, white, black, brown, whatever adjective you want to ascribe to a person, we've left people behind everywhere. Um,
yeah,
and we are purposely leaving more people behind, and we can't forget that those acts are happening. Um, because, like you said, if we forget that they're happening, then they disappear from our minds, but also the people who they're happening to disappear. And
yeah,
I, for one, won't let that happen because Miranda, you're fucking awesome. And if someone ever comes at you, you tell me because I'm a find a way.
yeah,
Because that's not cool. Like we have to roll for an initiative at this point with each other. Like you can't forget people. And I'm gonna I have another poem to share also because you inspired me to read one that actually got cut off on my Saturday readings. So Sunny, I'm glad you're here because I wanted you to hear the one I'm about to read too. I know you love listening in, um, but I think it's important that we have not only this, like Sunny just said, not only a digital footprint, but a physical one. Um, because the more we put ourselves out there, they can't burn all the books. They cannot erase the poetry and the words that we write. They cannot erase how we feel for each other and the care we have for each other. And um, I think we can't we can't forget each other in any way. Is I think the message of that is we have to say no more and actually mean it, and we have to say no one is forgotten because they're doing it. Like we have to be the ones that that remember. So, um, thank you, Miranda, for sharing. Um,
Yeah,
I really appreciate your poetry, and I would love to have you back again for some more. And but I want to finish out today with my poem "Why Have a Ballroom." Um, I think some of you have seen this one around floating around a little bit. Um, and but this one is about the $200 million waste in money that looks like a giant penis being added on to our White House. Um, and so, everyone, I hope you enjoyed today. I hope you enjoyed Miranda coming on with us and being an amazing guest and friend through all of this. I learned a lot. I have some new poems to go read. I hope you all do too. Um, and so I want to close out today with here is why have a ballroom? Why have a ballroom when you have no balls? Ballless and cold, those walls glitter with gold. Golden yet dull, those ivory white halls. Hollow dead walls, those halls shimmer from cold. Coldness seeps in, heartless. Coldness sinks in, darkness. In dark we rise. In heart we rise. Rising once more, reach for, restore the light. Lighting the way, break dark, shine through it all. Alive with light, reach out, we do what's right. Righteous and bold, take cold to rise, stand tall. Taller than cold, break dark. We rise, take hold. Taller than cold, with heart, we rise up bold. And that is why I have a ballroom. Um, and I hope everyone has a wonderful day. Miranda, I so appreciate you coming on today.
yeah,
I want to let you close it out with the final words saying where people can find you. Everybody knows where they can find me. It's Nick. I'm on Sick of This Shit with Nick. We are running our summer sale right now until Friday for 80% off all your monthly or annual membership. So please do subscribe for a paid subscription if you're not already. I'd love the support. That goes for any person who's signing up. So there's no special link for this one. Um, and if you aren't already, please go subscribe and follow Miranda. She is an amazing poet and a good friend now, I hope, and someone that I hope you all follow. So, Miranda, please take it away and close out.
yeah. So y'all can find my poems at thepoetmiranda.com. Um, I do plan to start selling prints of individual poems soon. And like I said earlier, I'm working on two different book manuscripts, so hopefully I can kind of solidify those and start getting them out there as fully formed books. The poems I read today are Selfies in a Rearview Mirror and Don't Remember Me for My Resilience. Both of those are on my site. So thanks again for having me, Nick. This was a lot of fun.
I appreciate it. And as always, everyone, let's stop being sick of this shit and let's start doing it. Have a great day, y'all. Thank you, Miranda. I look forward to talking to you again.